I've got a bone to pick with you. You didn't like my last video and you're not subscribed. I don't know what I'm gonna do with you guys. All right, subscribe, like the video. We're gonna talk about stuff that you're gonna want to actually know, and we're gonna continue doing that on this channel. So if you don't want to miss it, subscribe, like the video so I know you like it. Okay, goofy intro out of the way. We're gonna be talking about greens powders. I'm sure you've seen these everywhere because they've been around for quite a while, and a lot of people like to promote them and sell them and talk about all of their benefits. So I'm going to talk about the benefits. I'm going to talk about the negatives. I'm going to talk about the price breakdown and why people are talking about them and what they say they do versus what they actually do. Okay, so if you've ever seen greens powders or you're curious, hey, should I get them, or if you consume them, then you're going to want to know as to if you should continue, or should you start, or should you avoid them in their entirety. First off, I'm going to be using greens powders here as a broad subject. I'm not going to be talking about specifically one brand. I'm sure that if you've listened to, certain podcasts or seen certain TikTok influencers or YouTube or whatever, they're going to be promoting certain brands. I'm not going to call them out by name because all of them have different ingredients, different price ranges. And so I can't really just address one without addressing all of them because they all have their goods and their bads. So as a broad subject, that's what we're going to be talking about. All right, so first off, the benefits. One of the main benefits is that they're nutrient dense. So when you're taking a powder, what you're essentially doing is you're taking all of these micronutrients and essential minerals, and you're going to blend them together and make it into this powder that, like your creatine, your pre-workout or whatever, you just put it into some fluid, mix it up, and then drink it. So it's nice in the sense that it is going to be dense comparative to something like, if we wanted iron from spinach, let's say, we'd have to eat a lot of spinach in order to get the same amount of iron that we could maybe get from the powder. The powder is just going to come in a little scoop. The spinach is going to be a large volume. Next up is convenience. So for a lot of people, they don't like veggies unless they're cooked, or they don't like certain veggies in general. And so it's easy to just take a scoop, throw it into a water bottle, drink it, compared to preparing veggies, storing veggies. You have to worry about the downsides of them being that they can, go bad, and fruits as well. You have to keep them refrigerated. And depending on, seasonally, certain ones taste better, during the season in which they're the most ripe. Otherwise, you might be getting, like oranges out of season. They don't taste as good. So that's something to consider as well. Now, a big point is gut health. Where the people that promote them like to talk about gut health and how they support enzymes, prebiotics and probiotics, and how that's going to be beneficial because it's helping with your digestion, it's helping with your immune response and stuff like that. So that's also a huge one that you're going to see if you've watched any of these videos or advertisements. That's probably going to be one of their main listings as to why they're beneficial. And the last two I'm going to loop together here because they kind of go hand in hand. They always get mentioned is energy boost and anti-inflammatory. So people talk about they feel better, they feel more awake, more alert, more energetic, and then that they have less inflammation. Now, if you've heard me talk about inflammation before, this is a big one for me, and I need to make a video just about inflammation within itself because it is such a misunderstood word and misunderstood concept within the sport world and fitness world in general. And so I need to make a video about that. But in short, they love to talk about its anti-inflammatory benefits when they don't really understand how inflammation works. And then the same thing with energy, they feel more energetic whenever they have greens, or that's what they promote. All right, so now for the bads. The big one is going to be you can't just replace all of the essential minerals and micronutrients that you would need in your diet. So it's impossible to just get all of the fiber, all of the iron, all of the everything else that you're going to need, your magnesium, potassium, your vitamin D, vitamin C, whatever else that's going to be in the greens powder, as they're not always going to be 100% of your daily recommended intake. One, because it's not catered custom to you. And so if you're 150 pounds and then this other person's 250, the amount that they need is going to be different. Also by sport is going to be different, or by demand. If a person is a runner and then another person is a weightlifter, they have different demands in what they need. Now, obviously to just keep their body alive, you need all the micronutrients. However, you're going to need different ones depending on the person, especially between men and women, as you're going to have different deficiencies depending on if you're male or female. So that's something to take into account, is that you still need to eat fruits and vegetables for the most part within your diet, or just whole foods in general. And so we can't just take them out completely, take a scoop of greens and then that's, everything that we need for the day. Okay, here's the big negative in all honesty. proprietary blends. Not all brands are going to be transparent with what they're putting into their product, or they may be transparent about some things, but not everything. So if it has that like kind of cross symbol at the bottom and it says that it's a proprietary blend, or it says, like it's a manufactured mix, or I don't know exactly the specific wording that a lot of brands use, but that means that they're not telling you everything that goes into it, and they're not telling you the dosages. So if you read the nutrition facts on the bottom, let's say you're looking at a diet soda, right? The first thing that's going to be listed is water, because it's predominantly water. And then it's going to be, like the flavorings, the colors, the whatever else. That's going to be after. It does say in which order. So the nutrition facts will say in which order, which means in the largest quantity. So if the first thing listed is water, that's the thing that's the largest quantity put into it. However, it doesn't say how much. So, for this example, let's say number one on the list is like calcium, and then the second is iron. Well, there's going to be more calcium than iron, but you don't know how much. So that could be, half of what you actually need for the day for either of those. And then everything else after that could be less. So you don't know how much you're getting, and so you don't know if you're actually getting the amount that you would need. If you knew that it was half the dose, you could just double scoop, but you don't know. A lot of these brands use proprietary blends. They don't tell you what's in it because a lot of times they're going to be underdosing their products in order to save money, because it's expensive to take all of these micronutrients that you need and put them into one product. It would be very expensive. Now, talking on expensive, the cost is not cheap on these. For the most part, if you were to eat a whole foods diet with fruits and vegetables, especially if you were to get them on sale, you could get a pretty decent amount of your micronutrients covered in the day, especially fiber, because these products aren't going to have as much fiber as what you would find in foods. Those are going to be beneficial because it's going to be more cost effective than something like a greens powder, which, especially from certain brands, is really expensive. I'm not going to name brands again, but there are some that are like up there in price. It's pretty ridiculous. For like 30 servings, you're getting close to like $100. That's not something that I would want to spend money on, because that's ridiculous in my eyes. Now, another one here is going to be taste and texture. So for a lot of people, they feel like the flavor of it is not good. I would say for the most part, most people don't like the flavor of them. That's why you see people mixing it with different, things instead of water, or they're just, like trying to like shot glass it, drink it as fast as they can, because it doesn't taste good. And so if this is something that you don't enjoy the texture and taste of, which I've tried them before and I personally don't enjoy the flavor, is that something you're going to stick to long term? Is that something that you're going to have every single morning as you are supposed to with this product, or every single day? It doesn't need to be in the morning, but whenever you have it, are you going to have it every single day for months on end to get the benefits? For most people, I would say I don't think so. Now, another thing here is, since you're going to be just diluting it in water and putting it into your stomach, if you have it on an empty stomach, or even if you don't have it on an empty stomach, but you're just consuming the greens, it could actually cause stomach issues in terms of like poor digestion or bloating and stuff like that. Whereas they talk about how it's supposed to be good for gut health, but when you're throwing this many micronutrients at your body and this many things that need to be broken down at your stomach at one time, it can kind of put a tax on your system in a sense, because it has to break down all of these things. And that can be, leading to issues where people feel, uncomfortable in their stomach after having this. So while this isn't something that I see reported a lot, it is something that you should take into account, because it is something that can happen. Okay, so now we've kind of covered the good and the bad. I want to give kind of an assessment of greens powders within themselves, and you can make the assumption as to whether you think that this is something that you should include in your diet or not. So for the goods, it has benefits that they have listed in terms of it's going to be more convenient. It's easy to just digest and throw it into your body with water or whatever other fluids, and you don't have to eat a bunch of food. Especially if you're a person who struggles to eat food. I know there's people out there who are hard gainers, or they just don't really enjoy eating. This could be a beneficial way of making sure that you're getting your micronutrients in without having to have a ton of food, like whole foods, fruits and vegetables, stuff like that. So from that standpoint, I get it. They also talk about inflammation, and they talk about the other benefits like digestive health, where I said it can be counterintuitive because it can actually mitigate your digestion and make it worse, especially from the front of that you're not consuming enough fiber with these things, as a lot of times they're not going to have enough fiber. And one of the reasons for that is because it's not going to taste good if they put too much fiber in it. And so as it already doesn't taste good and already has a negative texture for a lot of people, that's going to be something to take into account, because the benefits that they're talking about in terms of energy and stuff like that would just come from also eating a whole foods diet. The lack of inflammation would also just come from eating a whole foods diet. The benefits in terms of getting all your micronutrients in would also just come from eating a whole foods diet. So all of these positives that they list about greens powder truly are just the positives associated with getting your micronutrient intake for the day. So if this does want to be, something for you where you have, greens powders, sure. Again, for the reasons that I listed, if you struggle to eat a lot of food, this could be great. It's not cost efficient, but it could be great because for you, it may be, time is money, right? And you don't have the time to eat, so you'd rather this. Perfectly fine, I get it. However, if you're a person who is already eating fruits and vegetables throughout the day, maybe you'd have a multivitamin supplement that you take, or you supplement with, fish oil, or specifically vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever else you have supplements that you take for the maybe areas in your diet that you don't do a great job about, but for the rest of, the food that you eat, you try and cover all your bases, then this is unnecessary. It's not something that you need to be supplementing with. You can do a blood panel if you want and see if you have, deficiencies in certain areas when it comes to like micronutrients or, if you should supplement with something. They aren't too expensive if you were to do a blood panel. However, there is a cost associated with it, so that's something to keep in mind. But even just looking at your diet, go to MyFitnessPal, track what you eat generally for the day. Click on the food tab on the top where it says like your calories and everything. Click on food after the end of the day, and it'll show you the micronutrients that you eat throughout the day. Now, you might have to pay for premium to see all of them, but you can see quite a few. And so that can give you a pretty good baseline as to, okay, should I be supplementing with something else? Is this supplement right for me in the sense of should I have a greens powder, or would I be okay maybe just adding like broccoli to my diet or whatever else? That might be a more cost-effective option and also taste better than just the greens powder. You can dress up fruits and vegetables super well, add them to, fruits you can add to like yogurt or smoothies or, whatever else. Whereas vegetables, you can season them, cook them. You can add them with, meat dishes or whatever else to make them taste good, or pastas, whatever else. You can kind of, hide them in a sense. If you've ever heard of the videos of, or if you've seen the videos of moms who like put a bunch of veggies into their, chili or pasta or soups for their kids, and the kids don't even know because you can, just kind of hide it in there. There's tricks that, people do. So if you want to look that up, that's great. I would rather you do that than consume greens powders because, again, they're expensive, they don't taste great, and you can just get all of this stuff from eating whole foods anyways. So while I see there are specific niche cases in which it could be beneficial to have something like this in your diet as it's just more convenient and you don't care about cost, sure. However, from my personal standpoint, I would not spend money on it. If I'm going to get these micronutrients, as you should be for a healthy and balanced diet and just overall performance and feeling good and longevity, you can just get those from foods. I would rather just get them from foods. Again, if you want to know more about how to get them from foods, I've talked about it a little bit in this video, but also if you go back to my video on muscle growth, which again, it's not just specific to muscle growth, however, that's what I titled it. It does a whole breakdown as to macronutrients, micronutrients, and supplementation. You can just watch the micronutrient and supplementation part and understand essentially what you need to know in order to make a well-rounded diet and get all of your micronutrient goals without having to buy these greens powders. So I know they're everywhere. I know people talk about the benefits. I know that, it's enticing. However, in most cases, it's not necessary if you're eating well. Now, if you aren't eating well, we should probably talk about your diet. That's something that you need to do. So, want help with your diet? You can contact me for coaching. I do nutrition advice or nutrition plans. I also do training plans and one-on-one coaching, which would be both of those combined together into a week-by-week custom program that changes in time as you do. We do weekly check-ins, and month by month, we're trying to get you to progress up as much as you can in terms of your goals of, maybe running or strength training or hypertrophy. And then with the nutrition, we try and get you as consistent as possible, but eating things that you enjoy. If you follow me on my other platforms, I post all the time, especially on Instagram on my story, about every single meal that I eat nearly every single day. I will post almost every single day in terms of on my story and talking about the things that I eat. So if you want to know more about maybe ideas as to what to eat, follow me on Instagram. If you would like help with nutrition, message me, go to my website in the description down below, and you can fill out my coaching form. I will make a plan for you that is going to help you reach your micronutrient goals, reach your macronutrient goals, and hit your goals in terms of weight loss, muscle gain, whatever else. So that's my kind of spiel for the day on greens. I saw someone post a video about greens and it kind of really frustrated me. So that's why I made this video. It was kind of, spur of the moment thing. However, if you have any questions that you want answered, leave them in the comments below and I will make a full long form video just like I did for this one in terms of answering your question if I feel that it's a good question that a lot of people would like answers from. Otherwise, if you leave a comment down below, I reply to every single comment that I get. I don't get enough comments not to. And so for now, you might as well just leave a comment because I reply to every single one. If you go back on every single one of my videos, I have replied to every single one. I leave a like on every single one, and I love engaging with people when it comes to this stuff because this is my passion, this is my job. So if you have any questions, I'll leave them down below. I'm done rambling for today, but yeah, peace.